Occult Macabre, a phantasmagoric guide to pop culture's dark side. I'm Lee.
And I'm Richie.
And on today's episode, we bring to you our review of the movie Iron Lung.
Directed by one Mark Fishbach, aka Markiplier. And much like Tommy Wiseau, Markiplier directed, edited, wrote, executive produced, funded, released it. This is a man of many hatapliers.
Hataplier?
Yeah. This is a man of many hatapliers. But I don't, before we get into this anymore, I do want to say, yes, big, giant shout out to his entire crew and the rest of the cast on this film. This is based on the video game of the same name released in 2022, created by David Zemansky. Dude, look, there's not a whole bunch to get into with this. Honestly, right out of the gate, if you saw this movie, you knew what you were getting into. This is, in my opinion, probably the most actual faithful video game adaptation I've seen.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly. Out of all the films I've seen created from video games, that was hands down the most on the point one, for sure.
And I feel like before we get into the movie, for those of you out there that may not want to get into the movie because maybe you have I will say this, Lee, you were surprisingly all in on this because you have aquaphobia so badly, and then a lot of other things that kind of go into deep sea adventuring.
Yeah, thalassophobia, very hard. I knew what I was in for, so that helped quite a bit. But even watching Markiplier's Let's Plays of this on YouTube was a huge struggle for me, because even just simple imagery can trigger it, or even just, the darkness and depth of the water in this case, blood itself is terrifying enough to me, and the idea of being trapped in a small space under all that pressure and liquid. Yeah, no, that was pretty rough, but that did not stop me from going to see it.
Yeah, and the video game takes place on a moon. There's a lot of stuff to get into plot-wise with this. So essentially, the video game is a submarine simulation horror game, and you play as an unnamed convict that explores an ocean of blood on a desolate moon in a submarine that's nicknamed the Iron Lung. Now, the game and the film kind of go hand in hand, so I don't feel like there's a need to differentiate the two. We can just jump right in. However, I will say that at first the game didn't have a lot of backstory to it, and there was an update to the game. I don't think it was very long after it was released that there was a lore update. In fact, there is a spot in the back of the Iron Lung that's a data computer that was never there at first. And it came along with the update, and that's kind of what gave the backstory. The player goes and kind of codes in certain stuff, and it tells you everything about it.
Which, and I will say for its credit, I saw it before. I watched Let's Play before the update ever came out, and I was still fascinated with, its story and stuff like that then, and the update only made it that much more interesting.
Yeah, and the best part about the film Iron Lung is that while the video game kind of gives you hey, you're in this submarine, here's your mission, the video game doesn't give you a lot of backstory as you, the player. In the film, Mark portrays a person named Simon, who is the convict. And what happens is there's an event called the Quiet Rapture that basically cuts contact with all colonized planets, and all the star systems and planets, they completely just disappear. They're just wiped completely. And it's just a few space stations and some spaceships, and the human population is completely just a disaster.
Almost nothing, yes.
The backstory is revealed over the course of the film, where Simon is imprisoned for his involvement with the destruction of one of these space stations. However, Simon maintains his innocence throughout the film, which kind of gives you the sympathetic angle with the character of Simon. I want to point out the film's runtime and location, basically the setting. The whole movie takes place in this ship, and I think that's fucking brilliant.
Honestly, kudos to them for the way that it was filmed and portrayed. Even though it was a small enclosed space, I didn't feel like it was a small space. Yes, you get the anxiety of being in the submarine right there with Simon, right? But they made so much of that space and used every single bit of it that they could in the storytelling and in the imagery. And it was wonderfully done, all things considered. I'm very, very pleased with how that turned out. I was not at any time bored with the location that they used for it.
Right. And also, I want to point out about the Iron Lung itself. It was a very, very faithful recreation of the ship from the game. I mean, the piping was in the same location, all of the button controls and all that stuff. The movie was shot on red digital, and it looked amazing. I want to say that also is that, like, when you go into this movie, you're thinking, like, okay, it's a YouTuber making a movie. It's going to look like a YouTube channel, like, thing. No. This absolutely deserved to be released on a big screen, and it deserves to be seen on a big screen. So, like, while we're talking about this right now, if it's playing near you and it's still playing right now as of this episode release, go see it.
Yes, please. The quality of the footage is honestly, like, it's astounding, and I think it is one of the reasons why I personally feel like it deserves credit.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, the space in the Iron Lung at the same time, while, you know, you're saying, like, oh, it's not, like, it doesn't feel small, it kind of does, like, throughout the movie, and I think that's by design and also very well done with shot choices here. So you lose track of time. Things that go by in a matter of, like, a 30-minute span have been hours for Simon. And you kind of go on this, like, descent of madness with him throughout the movie, and I think, again, also by design, and it's fucking brilliant. Because I know a lot of people, like, their biggest complaint about this film was that it was very slow-paced, but I also think that a slow burn type of setting for this film is absolutely what was intended. Because, again, you're losing your mind along with Simon. You know, you're seeing things that he's seeing, and you're like, okay, is this really happening? Is he just seeing shit? You'd go crazy. There's no contact. You're just by yourself. And you think about these quiet chambers that they put people in when they have nothing. Like, it's so quiet that you can hear your
heartbeat. Yes, yes. It'll make you go mad, just that in and of itself. And I do think they do a very good job. I feel like the pacing of the movie lends well to that. It makes the watcher very much aware of the passing of time, just like you're certain that Simon is going through this. And it's very well done, all things considered.
Yeah, so, like, Simon being down there and using the X-ray photographing system that's there, which basically, like, they weld him in so he can't get out, right? And the little window that's in the front of the submarine has to be shut because of the pressure from the blood in the ocean. So he has to rely on this X-ray to see what's in front of him, and he has to rely on coordinate mapping just to see what he's fighting down there, much like the video game. Now, one thing I loved about this was, you know, you throughout the film, you see, like, damage that gets incurred to the ship because it's a rust bucket of shit, basically. And there's parts where, like, he's got to repair the backup energy source, and he's having to hit that X-ray button just to have light to see anything in there. You know, and then much like the game, he figures out, well, hey, man, I'm not the first one that's down here. You know, he's piloting the SM-13, and he comes across, like, the SM-8 and, like, a bunch of other stuff. Again, it's very much a deep lore to get into, which we're just kind of going, no pun intended, surface level here, because we would love for you to experience this if you haven't already. We just want to have a general discussion about the film because we absolutely loved it, and we loved certain sequences, camera shot, like angles of the camera. The directing, I think, was something that we should actually talk about because Mark directed himself in this. I think Mark did a tremendous job as the front loaded person, you know, like, because he could have easily cast somebody, but, you know, doing it himself, it's kind of one of those, like, fuck it, I'm gonna do it myself, fuck it, we're doing it live. But he did great, and he was very believable. You know, there was a point in the movie, probably 20 minutes in, maybe 30, where I was like, okay, I'm losing Mark Fishbach, and I'm buying into who Simon is as a person, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I felt that way as well. There were a couple scenes, especially earlier on the film, where I'm like, oh man, that's just Mark, you know, and I'm struggling to have the separation, but it grew on me as time went past. It got easier with it, and I think it's almost like you can watch Mark ease into it, you know what I mean? And then it's 100% there. Like, overall, I think Mark's acting was fantastic, and I've said this for years, having watched Markiplier for actual literal years. He has a very, very expressive face and a very, very expressive voice, and that goes very, very far for him. So he does an excellent job of using that to his advantage.
Yeah, and the one thing I think that also plays to his advantage is this is where, it could be a problem, critically speaking, where it's like, oh, you don't separate Mark Fishbach from the character of Simon. However, I think you can almost put your sympathy one and the same for this character because he is a sympathetic character. If you already have sympathy for Mark as a human being, you're more apt to be like, okay, well, I'm buying into the sympathy for this character too, because you don't want to see anything happen to him and you don't want to see him get hurt. You know what I mean? It's, but the way that he goes from sadness to fearful to angry, like he's really good at kind of congealing all of these emotions. You see other people in the film, such as Carolyn Rose Kaplan, who plays Ava, who is the person that he's mostly speaking to on the intercom, who lowers him in. And you hear other actors that are on this intercom, like David, who's portrayed by Troy Baker. And we even get a scene where they bring him back up, and because he thinks he's getting out, or they bring him back up, and he gets mad because they don't, and he smacks the X-ray button, and he basically fries one of them, and that's Jack, who is played by Sean McLaughlin, who is Jacksepticeye.
Yeah, it was crazy. You can see it on his face the second that he's told that camera is actually a dose of radiation, because normal cameras can't see through blood like that, so you have to basically X-ray it. I really liked the emotion on his face in that scene where he just kept saying, I didn't know. If you'd have told me that, I didn't know, and that I was like, oh man, that is super rough. And there's a point later on where Ava says something like, you can tell that to my tumors. And I was just like, ooh, that sucks. But it was a good scene. Yeah,
because they don't, again, just like the video game, they don't tell you very much. When you're playing the game, they don't really tell you very much. They didn't tell Simon a fucking thing. They're just like, hey, we have this thing that is going to earn your place in our society. Basically, it will expedite your prison sentence to rejoin society, which is known as the consolidation of iron. Yeah, they kind of talk about this stuff, and I think that's one of the, and I'm not going to say flaw like a bad thing, but I will say that might be one of the flaws, is that they don't really give you very much as far as what is what. There's kind of a balance of, if you're getting into this. I don't necessarily think that anybody that didn't like this movie knew what the fuck was happening. We've played / watched the gameplay through. We know who Mark is, and we know what the subject matter is. How do you feel like, I guess it's kind of hard to pose this question because we're both fans and we've played and watched this game. How do you think it translates to somebody who has no knowledge about any of this stuff, and they're just like, oh, this looks interesting just based on trailer, and they go into it blindly speaking? There's a couple of mixing issues here, as far as dialogue is concerned, which again, there's some stylistic choices, but also again, you could easily get lost in the blood sauce.
And let me talk about that for a second, because after we saw the movie and we were starting to put our thoughts out there to each other, my number one complaint about the entire movie is the sound issues with the dialogue. And you and I spoke about this, and I know that you feel like it was definitely a stylistic choice, and I get that with the voice modulation and everything like that, even the layering to a certain extent. And yes, I do have some hearing issues. I'm like a subtitle bitch all the way, but I could not discern a single one thing that was happening during those scenes because of the way the sound was designed in them. The overlapping vocals, plus the modulation, plus every sound that was going on in the background. It was too much. I couldn't focus on any one thing, and therefore I feel like I missed something in the process of that. That being besides the fact, I think if you see the trailer and that interests you and you go in here, it might not be what you expected it to be, but I think you'd be pleasantly surprised with it. For what it is, a science fiction, you could call it a cosmic horror.
But that's
yes,
exactly what it is.
Absolutely. I think when you look at it through that lens, then it's a good movie. I don't think someone who has those interests would be wholly disappointed in it.
The one movie that it does get compared to, and I have to say I agree, is Event Horizon.
I've seen that. Yep, I have seen that around looking at some of the reviews of the movie.
Which, if there's going to be a movie that you get compared to, that's That's not bad.
Yeah, all things considered.
Event Horizon's a fucking fantastic science fiction horror movie. Have you ever seen it?
A long time ago. It's been a hot minute.
In a galaxy far, far away?
Yes, exactly. How thematic. But I don't remember very much about it, just its basic premise.
Yeah, it's great. But I think one thing that the audience does as far as going along for the ride is that you feel the frustration along with Simon's character. You feel every emotion he feels because you're trapped in this fucking thing with him. It's an exercise of endurance as an audience. And I also want to point out there's a lot of parallel with this movie and Mark. I feel like this film, the game's story and Mark's life share a lot of parallels. And I think that's why this might have been such a passion project for him, because like he raved about how much he loved this game when he was playing it. We had no idea that he ever had like aspirations to make this into a film. And when it got announced, the first thought I had was, oh, that makes complete sense. Out of all the games that he's played over the years, this is the one that grabbed him and had him in a chokehold and was like, I have to do this. And the set they built for it was pretty goddamn amazing. It's on a hydraulic system. You know what I think it reminds me of? It reminds me of the set they built for The Room in A Nightmare on Elm Street.
I knew you were going to say that. I had the same exact thought.
Yeah, they had him inside of there. And then, on top of it, he has the world record for the most amount of blood, fake blood he used in a film. And I think that's fucking fantastic, actually.
And I don't feel like it was too much or like extra or anything like that. I feel like the scenes where the copious amounts of blood were used were totally appropriate.
Well, yeah, because it just builds over time. It's not like, the movie is not violent by 3/4 of it, basically. Like, there's some questionable scenes,
Sure.
But the climax of the movie, as it were, is absolutely where all of this comes into play. There's a really weird, like, trippy, oxygen-deprived sequence that got you really good in the theater. Like, you put, like, fucking nail marks in my arm.
I remember that too. I was like, oh my God, my heart is racing. My anxiety level is rising. I don't know if I can handle this scene for that much longer. And right when I thought my heart was going to pop, it ended. And I was like, okay, let me try and breathe now.
As far as those go, let's talk about the visual effects comparatively to the practical effects, which I think it's great that this movie was pretty much 90% practical effects. And I believe the only time that digital effects were done were like back half of the movie.
I think there were two scenes in particular for me where I felt like the practical effects used to film it were absolutely phenomenal. One scene that comes to mind is when he's under the ship in that crawl space and the blood is raising and he's like crawling / dragging himself / swimming through it. That was amazingly done.
Yeah, I was shoving my feet against the rest bar in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
I was getting anxious for him whenever that was happening, and I was like, oh my God, because drowning is one of my other fears.
Yeah, I mean, that's a top one for me too because of my other issues, obviously. But yes, that was, I could feel my chest tightening with that.
Mark went to the hospital for this shit, right?
I did not know that.
He got a ton of fake blood in his eyes, and he had to go to the hospital.
Oh, poor baby. With the way his body was getting slammed around on the ship, too, I imagine when that set turns, there probably are some accidents that happen. You probably do get bumped around quite a bit.
Well, there's like a photo. You can look it up on the internet, and he's just like, he's in a hospital bed, like looking at the camera, and his eyes look bloodshot, but it's because his fucking cornea and shit they're all stained red from the blood.
Oh, gosh. That's crazy. We suffer for our art. I think the other scene that really did it for me was, those last 5-10 minutes of the movie, right? I don't want to go into too much detail, but they use a lot of great practical makeup effects for some body changes that happen.
Yeah, I was going to say this kind of morphs into a full-blown body horror by the last 5 minutes, and I'm like, I love that because that was not a thing in the games as far as I'm aware. Like a lot of that was not there, and I think that's where I fell more in love with this movie was that they took a very simplistic concept and they added to the lore, they added to like the stakes without really like taking too much away.
For sure.
It was grotesque as shit, honestly. I really love a few of the twists in the movie too. Again, not to, spoil a whole bunch, but I do love the character questioning Is he really seeing and hearing things, or like, you know what I mean? Like, it
Yes.
really plays into that paranoia, and it plays into the literal descent into madness of being in this submarine and losing track of time. No food. He barely even has anything to drink, and it turns out the water that he does find is not something that he was supposed to consume. It was for the life vest.
I think it was drinkable water. The life vest was just water activated. I think that was in the case of, you end up out in the blood, but that's not going to fucking save you.
Right, but that was the thing. He got pissed off because he even called himself a dumbass for drinking the whole fucking thing.
Yeah, and then he opens up the jar of alcohol to dress his wounds and just throws that shit back and says, fuck it, instead of actually using it to disinfect.
Yeah. I mean, but that kind of shows you, like, mentally where Simon is, throughout the movie. But I do appreciate how they tried to fill in some of the game, the game lore and the concepts, and they, the translation from video game to screen.
Yeah, and I love how David Szymanski was like a creative consultant for the movie as well, so he was clearly heavily involved in all of this.
And shout out to Andrew Hulshult, the composer for this.
Yes.
Dude, amazing score. I actually want to buy this. If it ever becomes available on vinyl, I want this on vinyl.
I was actually noting that myself. I was like, man, the score is actually really, really good. It's appropriate, and it's thrumming up my anxiety in the background. It was great.
I think I really love the score because I like how as the film progresses, the score gets more deranged.
Chaotic.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And, there's some other flaws, I think, with this. But again, I don't think these are so much flaws as they are like calculated shots to kind of hide the effects they were having to do.
Sure.
A lot of shaky cam towards the end of the film. But again, it kind of lends to the whole psychosis of Simon, and it lends to the mental break.
Yeah.
I love the practical effects they use there.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody that's played this game knows how it ends. The video, I can spoil the video game ending because it kind of is this, but it's not in the movie. Like, you're just playing and you're just like boating along in your fucking submarine, and then crash, like the monster just crashes through the front, and it just cuts to black, and that's it.
It's crazy because we were just rewatching the Let's Play after seeing the movie for the first time, and we get to the very end, and for some reason my brain must have blacked out, like blanked out completely as to that being the ending, because that thing came at the screen and I about shit myself.
Did you open your eyes? Did you actually keep them open for the end of the film, or did you shut them?
I kept them open. There were a couple times where I had to look away and just take a deep breath real quick and then return my attention, but I did keep my eyes open.
So what did you think of that? How, as far as like the visual of that, like, did it live up to like the builds of the climax, and then did the visual effects like look decent enough, or do you feel like it took away? Like, what was that?
I don't feel like it took away. For me, I thought it was perfectly appropriate. Like, it still made me, it gave me the ick as far as that's concerned. It still freaked me out just as much as the imagery in the video game. And I think part of that is like, I'm really big on monsters or villains or what have you getting as little screen time as possible, because the less you see something, the more afraid of it you can be.
That's how good Cloverfield was at this,
Yes.
as far as a film like that goes.
And like as far as video games go, Amnesia was really good at that, at least at the beginning of the game. The less you see it, the more you get creeped out by it. Since we're only getting fleeting images of this thing throughout the whole movie, throughout the whole game, it really builds that tension of what that thing actually looks like, how big it is, what it's capable of, if it's aggressive, like all this stuff. And then you see that build throughout the entire film, and then the final release of you like getting the visual of the actual creature is absolutely insane. I love that part in the video game in particular, because it literally did scare the crap out of me. And that's what I want. I want to be scared by a scary movie. You know what I mean? That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, and I think the coolest part about any of this adaptation, and I was hoping that they were going to do this. So in the video game, the creature is about the size of the lung. Like all things considered, what you see, in the game, it's about the size of the lung. The creature was overly massive in the film, which I very much appreciated, because I'm like, well, okay, if you're going to go for it, fucking go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was a good choice, all things considered.
And as far as the ending itself goes, I'm happy they stuck with, the video game's ending pretty much, but they gave Simon purpose. I feel like by the end of it, he had purpose, and his mission was kind of like, well, I understand it now. It's like he's kind of rebelling against the whole thing, and then he kind of, I don't know, if it's meant to be like, oh, he fucking suckered and bought into it, or if like that's really what it's supposed to be. Because I do like the ambiguity of, did any of this really happen? Did it not happen? You know what I mean? Like, I love that you kind of question this stuff along with Simon.
It definitely makes you wonder what is real, what happened, whether or not he actually heard any of the people talking to him the entire movie. I think for me, I really like the transition of like, why should I do this for you? And then trying to barter for his own freedom the entire time. And when it gets to the point where he realizes that dream's a lot further away than he thinks, I think he gets this attitude of, I'm not going down without a fight. And they have this repeated motif throughout the movie of this is bigger than all of us kind of thing going on. And whether he tells himself that as a last fleeting comfort at the end of his life or not, it works for him, and it works for the end of the movie. I'm not going to spoil those last few scenes because I feel like they are important to it, but he in the end, he takes that to heart, and I think that was the most real thing he could have clung to in that moment.
Yeah, and I feel like that was the character growth, truly.
Yeah, honestly, because the whole time he's trying to save himself, save his own skin, trying to get out of, prison or whatever. And at the end of it, it's, what can I do? I'm going to do it now because what choice do I have?
Yeah, because there was that in pretty much the opening letter from the video game, and then the letter he finds is pretty much the basis for the whole attitude of anyone that was down there. This is not an expedition, it is an execution. When they put you in here, they don't want you to return, and even if you do, and even if they keep their promises, what freedom waits for you? A few dying ships and a sea of dead stars? If there is still hope, it lies beyond the veil. Hope in this void is as illusionary as the starlight. I will choose to breathe my last at the bottom of an ocean, unseen, unheard, and uncontrolled. They will get their execution, I will get my freedom. When the trailer came out, that's what the narration was over the cinematography. And for anybody that doesn't know anything about this, that's a pretty goddamn good selling pitch. It's very mysterious, and it's very like, holy shit, It's
intense, but you want to know that intensity.
Yeah, which I think, again, plays into the strength of the film itself. And I want to talk about, before we get out of here, I want to talk about the success of this movie, because we would be remiss if we didn't mention where it started from versus where it is now, because it's pretty damn impressive, actually. Initially, I believe this movie was only going to be in like 50 to 100 theaters,
and
it was in 4,500 by the time opening weekend hit.
In several countries.
Yeah, I remember the day Regal picked it up. I remember the day Cinemark picked it up. And it was cool because Mark was just excited that a couple of theaters in his hometown picked it up.
It's crazy because I felt like we were celebrating all those wins with him too, because every time we saw that it was coming out in somewhere else, we were like, fuck yeah, that is fantastic. And by the time we found out that it was releasing in our hometown, we were like, we are getting tickets as soon as possible to guarantee our slot there, because the theater was packed. Like, all things considered, it was pretty blown out, even several days after release. And by the end of the weekend, though the budget for the movie was $3 million, if I'm recalling correctly, it ended up grossing $21 million. That is a financial success by far and large.
Yep, and I would dare say, and I know it's not, but I would dare say, just if you look at it from the perspective of no film studio was attached to this, and this was completely self-funded, self-released, and word of mouth, like literally as grassroots as you can get. This may be the most successful independent film, because this is truly independent film. It is. All Mark had was his follower base on YouTube, and he just kind of casually mentioned it here and there, talking about, oh yeah, I'm doing Iron Lung, and he released the trailer on his gaming channel. Oh yeah, I'm doing Iron Lung. It's gonna be in a couple hundred theaters. Let's go see it. And then it started growing into this phenomenon, dude. It was number one on opening day. It was the number one movie on opening day on the Friday that it released. And that was up against fucking Sam Raimi, dude. Like, one of the all-time living legends in horror, Sam fucking Raimi. Sam fucking Evil Dead Raimi had a film called Sin Help with Rachel McAdams. That movie grossed $28.6 million on a $40 million budget, and Mark eked like $7 million less on like a fraction of this budget and finished second to that one.
It's so insane when you think about it numbers wise, but I just want to take a second to say actual, like, straight from the heart, congratulations, Mark. It's been amazing to, even as just a viewer, be a part of that and watch him grow as a person and grow his channel and grow his content to the point that he was able to do something like this and actually pursue an artistic love project. Basically, he was into this and just went for it, and I love that for him. And I honestly wish him nothing but success and the best in his future. I hope he takes this success and doubles upon it and uses his passion to do more projects like this. I would love to see that.
Yeah, same here. And to double up on your point, you know, personally, I've been watching Mark since 2012. My kid and I have watched Mark. He's damn near an adult now, my kid. And it's wild to think where he came from. Like, I remember, I can't even fathom that Mark has been a staple of my daily entertainment for almost 15 years now. That's insane, you know?
It is really weird to think about. I'm thinking about some of the very first games I ever watched Mark play, and it's getting me really... I think my first one was his Amnesia playthrough, actually, with Tiny Box Tim. It was a whole freaking thing. Huge in the moment. And I think back on that very fondly. And I like how that no matter how successful Mark has gotten, I feel like he has always stayed true to himself and stayed true to his fans and not let that go to his head or affect him in any negative way.
No, he's always been extremely humble and very real, and that translates, that shows. Mark just gives off this really cinnamon roll demeanor.
Yeah, he has a sweet cinnamon roll. He does seem that way.
Yeah, so I loved in the credits seeing Mark, Amy, and Chica.
Oh yeah, we were pointing out all the stuff that we could find.
And Henry, like the little portraits of them, and I loved seeing their whole crew get little, like, you know, Instacam, like, portrait, like, pieces that, you know, flew up the screen throughout. And I know we're kind of rambling on here at the ass end of this one, but it truly does feel like a win for all of us, because we were all on the ground. Most of us were all on the ground floor with Mark when he started this. And we watched some of the games that he played that were just, whatever. And then we watched a lot of the games that he played that were just massive successes for him. You know, Mark may be the king of Five Nights at Freddy's, but I think he will forever be associated now completely with Iron Lung, no matter what.
That's irreversible at this point now. And I love that for him, though.
I do too. And again, from us to you, huge congratulations on this. And we both look forward to whatever you decide to do in the future film-wise. I don't want to say that this is confirmed because it is just a rumor at this point, but the next project that I remembered reading about him possibly having some kind of involvement in was an adaptation of the story of House of Leaves.
Oh, man. One of these days we might have to do an episode just on that book, which I recently obtained as a Christmas present, been asking for it for a while or looking to have it for a while, and I'm very excited to delve into that. And I know it's just rumor, and sure, there's a huge chance it's not even true. But as soon as I heard that, I turned to Richie and I said, I have to finish that book as soon as possible.
Yeah, because we briefly mentioned that book on our episode on liminal spaces. So if you haven't checked that episode out, go back and check that one out along with the rest of our catalog of episodes on our channel.
All right, Richie, now the important question. On our little 1 to 5 grading scale, what would you personally rate Mark's movie, Iron Lung?
This is easily a 4 out of 5 for me. I don't think it's without flaws. I don't think there's ever truly really a perfect movie, but speaking as far as my tastes go, I love slow burn sci-fi and horror movies. I really feel like, you know, there's a couple of questionable camera things, but for the most part, like 90% of that was just like fucking immaculate. You know, obviously, like, directing your own movie, you kind of want to leave shit in and you don't want to take very much out. I appreciate what was left in and what didn't make the cut. You know, but I do think like maybe like 5 minutes could have been trimmed out, but that's just me. I think it is fine. The highest compliment I can give to this movie, and you will attest to this being like the Richie scale of compliments. When this does get a physical release, I want to own a copy of it. And that's not the compliment. The compliment is that Iron Lung will join the ranks of Akira and the Batman of movies that I will put on to go to sleep to.
That's going to be a new go-to for you, huh?
Yeah, it's a comfort watch. Like, Iron Lung is going to be one of those really fucked up comfort watches for me.
Yeah, I'm not sure it'll ever be a comfort watch for me, but it would be a frequent watch. Maybe I'll use it as a form of exposure therapy to help myself out with my water phobias, because Lord knows I need it.
What about you? What is your rating on this one?
For me, I would say Iron Lung is a very strong 3.5. I feel like I pretty much already touched base on the things that, you know, I feel like could have been improved with the movie. Most notably the dialogue and the audio involving the dialogue. I do feel like at the beginning, I do agree that some minor trimming could have been had. I did not need to see Mark go back and forth between the map, making those X's over and over and over again at the beginning. And like the charting bit, I was just like, okay, I get it. We're charting the map. The part that I did like it is when he was trying to find his way out of that cave. That part I feel like was great, but I feel like we could have trimmed a little bit in that first like 25 minutes of the movie.
I loved the fact that he wrote alien shit on like the thing and just circled it a bunch, where he was just like, oh, alien shit.
I think every time something like that came on screen, we were giggling.
The line, fucking aliens.
Fucking aliens.
Killed me. Loved it.
Yeah, and I remember thinking to myself, yeah, I guess technically it would be aliens, wouldn't it? Cosmic horror, aliens, they tend to hold hands sometimes, but regardless of anything else, still a super strong 3.5 for me. I would also like to own a physical copy of this, so I will definitely be supporting that if/when that happens. I am just so excited to see what Mark does next, and I'm sure he's only going to get better if he chooses to continue on his route of filmmaking.
For past, present, and future episodes of Cult Macabre, you can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. You can leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. You can leave us a rating or leave comments on individual episodes on Spotify. And if you're listening to this episode on our YouTube channel, please consider subscribing to the channel, clicking the bell for notifications for future episodes, leaving a like on this video, or leaving a comment down below. Any engagement helps. And if you'd like to follow us on Instagram or Facebook, all of this information can be found in our Linktree link in the show notes below.
So if you'd like to join us for more of pop culture's dark side, sign the Black Book and join the cult. I'm Lee.
And I'm Richie.
We'll see you next time.